Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Trying to work up the energy. We're recording this a little later on Wednesday night than normal, and it wasn't Soto being late this time. It was me. I took the family to Disneyland.
You had enough sugar. You should be up.
So I spent 10 hours standing in lines. This is the thing about Disneyland. There's nothing in the world that's more, when you're a little kid, you would kill to go there, and then when you're an adult, you would kill to not have to go there.
I don't know, man. My chick loves Disneyland. She loves it.
I could not.
I don't. I've been maybe twice in my adult life. Like since I was 21, I've probably been twice. And
They
I
are
was dragged
just
there each time.
Disneyland, just master manipulators and taking that moment of your toddler and just monetizing it. Like, you're gonna wait in line all day long. You're gonna pay hundreds of dollars. I remember when I was a kid, if you were in Southern California, it was $26 to get into Disneyland. Parking is $35.
Yeah.
Parking is $35.
Man, look, they've been doing it for like 70-something years. Like they've got that locked down. It's like ingrained in like the fiber of like your family, your like generational, like just imprinted in your DNA and your genetics now. Disney is in there.
When I'm there, I feel like I'm in like a bazaar in the Middle East because I feel like I'm getting pickpocketed because it's just literally you're just handing money everywhere. Oh, corn dog, it'll be $12. They do have beer now in a couple restaurants. It's like $11 for a Sierra Nevada.
Jeez.
Just like, oh, buy me these like Mickey ears. Buy me this princess staff. You're like, ah, good.
$50, $50.
Bam, bam, bam. Just like pickpocketed. And if it looks like I went to a strip club because I'm covering glitter, it's not that this time. But it's a combination of glitter from princesses and churro dust from holding my daughter on my shoulders and having her eat a churro on my head. So if it's all glistening, no, I was not at the titty bar this time.
That's two of my favorite things. Titty bars and churros.
You get you get the Raiders with a decent offense. That's all we need. That's 3 for 3.
That's a freaking trifecta right there. 3-way dance.
So a former Raider's making big news, and this time it's not for legal problems, although he's had his share of it. And I wonder if he's getting extra mouthy because of his former legal problems, like he was like a great broadcasting gig, and that all went away. Talking about Warren Sapp. He was asked from the What the Football show about Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. What's going on? And this was his answer.
We got the wrong guy at the helm. We're trying to implement something that is dead. The Patriot Way is dead. Bill Belichick even knows it. The Patriot Way is dead, and Josh McDaniels is trying to recreate something that he doesn't have the credentials for. He's not Bill Belichick. We watched him do this in Denver when he drafted Tim Tebow and ran the Broncos into the ground. He's going to do the same thing in Oakland. What did Maya Angelou say? When someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. Josh McDaniels is not a good football coach.
So Warren Sapp's always been a pretty shy guy, not one to mince words, kind of beats around the bush.
Yeah, kind of wishy-washy up and down,
Yeah, you never really know where he stands. He went all in on old JMD.
Yeah, it's not a secret. A lot of people feel this way. And although I do feel that people can adjust different parts of their personalities as they grow, as they get older, it doesn't seem like Coach McHerpes has really changed much. And the same stubbornness that we see in his offense, if that's how he is dealing with players and personal interactions and maybe some suggestions from people on his staff or outside his staff, there's no wonder why the offense looks the way it does.
So he brought up two things. He's and I think there's two aspects here that he brought up, and one of them is what everyone's talking about. Josh McDaniels, not a good coach, not a head coach, just can't do it. Mm-hmm. But he also brought up the other side of it. It's like, look, the Patriot Way is dead, and he's trying to recreate something that's already dead. So, like, when the Patriot Way was flourishing 12 years ago, whenever Josh McDaniels was at the Broncos, he's like, oh, we're going to recreate, something that's winning Super Bowls. He failed even then. Fast forward to 2023, and Bill Belichick, whether it's because he doesn't have Tom Brady, whether it's because he's getting old, whether because Robert Kraft's getting old, whether for whatever reason, whatever Bill Belichick that's been doing so well for so long It's not working anymore. And so you've got McDaniels, who's like not only trying to like dig up, like manufacture a way of football that he's not capable of manufacturing. He's trying to dig up the corpse of something that he's not capable of manufacturing.
So we have to take a look at something as far as like, if you're talking about accountability and being coached hard and stuff like that, that's nothing new, right? Basically, what you're talking about, the Patriot Way, quote unquote, is the offense that they run and their philosophy around personnel. That's what you're looking at. And that offense, when Josh McDaniels got to the Patriots, that's after they had the growing pains of the early Tom Brady, where they didn't ask him to do too much. He was very, scripted. He didn't make a lot of throws, and he had one or two throws a game, maybe, that he had to go out and, gun and show his arm off and whatever. But mostly it was just, don't turn the ball over. Our defense is great. We have a Hall of Fame kicker. Just don't do too much. And because Tom Brady did that, and he still had the ability to make, bigger throws, he was able to kind of grow in that system. So when Josh McDaniels got Tom Brady, he was already that dude. Yeah. He had already won multiple Super Bowls. So I don't know that Josh McDaniels knows how to build something like that offense from nothing, because he never had to do it from nothing. He got there when he already had the pieces, and he had basically the quarterback, because that's what we're all talking about here, right? Let's just call it what it is, because ever since Tom Brady left the Patriots, for some reason Bill Belichick can't win games. So it makes a lot of sense that he's trying to recreate some. Got it? Did you get it?
Got you.
What I tell you, you got to freaking aim high. You got to aim high.
You're dead.
Aim high, you're 2 for 2.
Yeah, eat someone else's blood, you sucker.
So
continue.
Yeah, so that's the issue that Josh McDaniels is running into. Is he's not only does it not work, it worked in the past with a very specific set of circumstances that he was basically gifted. He walked into that. Yeah. Now, I'm not to say that he didn't add anything to the offense that was already there, but the bulk of it was already there. So it just doesn't look like he has the ability to be flexible enough and modern enough to work against these defenses, these modern NFL defenses.
Yeah. And you've mentioned multiple times, and you brought it up with Gruden, you brought it up with Del Rio, and you brought it up a lot with Josh McDaniels, how like ego is a big reason why these guys are so rigid. They're afraid to change. They just want to do things their way. And look, when you're a multi-millionaire head coach and everyone in that building kisses your ass, ego's always a factor in these things with head coaches. It's always a factor, a big one, little one, whatever it may be. It's always part of it. I think it's less than you do with Josh McDaniels, because I don't think Josh McDaniels' ego is not letting him change and adapt and be flexible. I just don't think he knows how. I don't think he's capable. We got to remember, before Josh McDaniels made to the Patriots, his entire football work was he was a graduate assistant at Michigan State for like off season. That's it. All the football he knows is under Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick and the Patriots. That's all he knows. He knows nothing else. All these guys in the NFL, it's like, oh, I played high school displaced. I played D1 football. I played for 2 years. I was, cornerbacks coach at a D3 college, and then I became an assistant here, and I went to that team and that team and that team, and I had this giant coaching tree. That's most coaches. Not Josh McDaniels. He only knows one thing, and that's under Bill Belichick. And once he's out of Bill Belichick, he's asked to replicate Bill Belichick in the Patriot way. When the Broncos, failed. That year as offensive coordinator with the Rams, failed. With the Raiders, failed. So I think he just doesn't have the experience to do anything other than what he's programmed in. He's a one curriculum guy. He's a guy fighting in the UFC that's only wrestled his whole life. He's like, well, why isn't his wrestling working? Because he's never learned anything else. He only knows one discipline.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's probably a big part of it too. The thing is, there's ways that you can learn new things. And I think his stubbornness and his ego has kept him from doing that. Yeah. Nick Saban brought in a bunch of different guys. He went to different coaches and he started learning new things. When the college football started being a little bit more offensive heavy, and he's a defensive guy, he had to go out and learn new things. He had to know what to look for when he's looking for an offensive coordinator. So that's part of it, but also there's the part of it that's his ego that won't even attempt to go out and find and seek out new information. Yeah. I mean, we take a look at like Andy Reid, and you hear how Andy Reid deals with Mahomes and the tight end that we remain nameless. He's like, yeah, at the end of practice, he just lets us like, all right, guys, give me your best couple of plays. What do you guys think? And they use a lot of that stuff. They use a lot of those, maybe not the exact thing, but a lot of the concepts and a lot of the things. So it's a lot of times people's strength can also be factored into their weaknesses. And I think Josh McDaniels' belief in what he's doing and his blinders keep him from even attempting to search and seek out new knowledge.
The very best always try to learn from everywhere. Yeah. Joe Rogan told a story about how like George St. Pierre had already, maybe he was retired. Maybe he was in between when he like retired and before he came back to fight business, but he was already GS.
The guy. He's already
Mount Rushmore, right? He's already one of the best mixed martial artists I thought he was the greatest mixed martial artist of all time until John Jones went up to heavyweight. I think he's the second best mixed martial artist of all time.
John Jones. Oh my God.
Yeah, dude, he's out of Madison Square Garden.
He's out for a while. Those take a while to come back from.
At his age, a torn pec, yeah, brutal. Oof. But I remember Joe Rogan told a story about George St. Pierre going to Rogan and being like, "Hey, show me how you do a spinning back kick." Like I know because like Joe Rogan did Taekwondo for a long time, and he's not like UFC level badass, but he's good
technique, good striker. He's a black belt, yeah.
For civilians.
Oh yeah, for civilians, he's top notch.
Civilians, he's a badass, right? And remember, Rogan was just blown away. It's like, you're George St. Pierre. You're the greatest fighter on earth, and you're asking me something? Like, why? But that's how greats think, is I want to pick up something everywhere. That doesn't mean I'm going to use it all, and everything you're saying is gospel, but I can learn something from a guy who has way more Taekwondo experience than I do as George St. Pierre. And that's a mark of a brilliant thinking man who's going to be on top of their field for a very long time. And that is just so opposite of Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, I think the beginning of that whole story was he asked, "Hey, do you know anyone that has a good spinning back kick?" And Joe Rogan was like, "Well, I mean, I got a pretty decent one." And then like an hour later, he's like, "So you could show me your spinning back kick?" And that's when Joe Rogan was like, "What? For real, dude? Like, what the hell, man?" So I was at my brother went to UC Santa Barbara, and how
many STDs did he come back with?
Oh my God, I don't even.
And it was totally worth it.
I went up there. He lived in Isla Vista, and I went up there for Halloween. That was a big old party.
I've been to Halloween at UC Santa Barbara. It is an experience. I want to go there as a 40-year-old, just as a creeper, just to like remember how great it was.
His buddies. He shared like an apartment with like 3 other dudes, and they stole a big Ronald McDonald that they used to have, like the inflatable ones. And by the time they got it to their apartment, it was like half deflated, so it was just all jacked up and like doing all that.
Was it the inflatable inflating tube man? One of those?
It was very similar, but it was more down to the ground. But I was at the train station. I was grabbing the train in Anaheim, and there was like a homeless dude just sitting there, like an older guy. And he was just sitting there, and he walked up to me, asked me if I had any money. I had a couple bucks. I gave him a couple bucks. He sat down. He was just kind of sitting there. And he looks at me, and he's like, "Let me tell you something, kid." I was like 16, 17 years old. He's like, "Never get old. Never get old. And the only place that you can really get old where it affects you the most is up here." And I'm like thinking to myself, yeah, like if you think old, if you act and think like somebody that is too out of touch and can't do things, that can't learn new things, that can't be on top of current topics and can't accept, I mean, not have to agree, but you can't accept new points of view. Yeah, you are going to age quickly in that sense. You're gonna squeeze yourself out of the newer, younger society if you are so stuck in old things. And working at the gym helps me stay young. I work with teens and 20-year-olds like pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, dealing with you and like, you know, you have a kid, it keeps you young. And like, I'm, you know, doing something that 46-year-olds don't typically do, which is starting a podcast. Like, so it makes more sense now than it did back then. And it's all about having that flexibility to be able to incorporate new things.
That's why an old buddy of ours, Danny Acosta, once said, RJ, you live your life like it's the last day of the first semester of junior college. I was like, yeah, it's pretty accurate. You're kind of footloose and fancy free. It's like, all right, the semester's done. I'm not blowing my savings, right? I'm not like doing lines in Tijuana every night, but it's like it's time to party, but there's still some things in the future.
I got school in 3 weeks. Like school starts.
Yeah, but it's like it's right at that, and you're young enough where you can be dumb. You don't have that much responsibility. It's like it's right in that middle ground. And I was like, that's insanely articulate and poetic, Danny. And I kind of always agreed with them.
Good guy, Danny.
Yeah, he's a good man. Good guy. So when I first like saw that Warren Sapp was trending, because I was at Disneyland all day long. I didn't have a chance to like listen to it yet. I was just kind of like making notes on my phone as I'm standing in hour-long lines to meet Donald Duck.
Sounds awful.
I thought to myself, like, okay, I'm going to wonder how good this is going to be, because Warren Sapp, after those legal troubles, right? He was on NFL Network and he got caught with a prostitute and he got arrested and the video came out.
I mean, who hasn't?
Yeah, right. That's a Thursday around these parts. But with him, it was like he's been extra like vocal to try to get back in like people's minds and back in headlines. I'm like, all right, is he just going to say something crazy and outlandish? And I'm like, does he have a beef with Josh McDaniels? Is there history there? And there isn't. Obviously, Warren Sapp was a Raider for a hot minute after being with Tampa Bay. But he did bring up, I think but it was really insightful. And that's why I wanted to talk about it and bring it up, when he was talking about how he's trying to do something that's already dead. And I never thought about it that way, right? Because normally it's just like every other GM and owner that's been hiring all these expatriates is like, well, something's working in New England. Can we grab that recipe? Like, something's happening there, right? Something's clearly working. Can we get that? Can we replicate that? And it's bad enough when you're trying to replicate something when you don't have Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady. But now you're seeing that it's not working if you're missing just one of those pieces, just not having Tom Brady. And I think Father Time, because the defense in New England isn't up to its normal snuff either, which isn't obviously Tom Brady. But you're trying to replicate something that's already gone past its time.
Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy, Teddy Bruschi, Willie McGinnis, like those guys were there from the beginning going through it, and they're the ones that really
Chandler
heavily on those guys. Yeah, later on.
The beginning, but
yeah. I mean, he also was lawyer. I don't think Ty Law was there from the beginning, but you got it took a while to get to that point, and I don't know that Mark Davis and Josh McDaniels fully appreciated the work that went into building that when Josh McDaniels wasn't there.
Yeah.
When he wasn't the offensive coordinator, when he was just an assistant, or, it took a lot more than just the vision was a lot further down than what I think Josh McDaniels thought, and definitely what Mark Davis thought.
So now that Josh McDaniels is at the helm, it's a matter of where do we go now? The trade deadline's on Halloween of all times. Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report has chimed in on this, and Hunter Renfrow has gone from probably mid off season to like kind of whispers of like, are they going to trade him? Is he part of the system? JMD not like him for whatever reason. To now it's like, okay, it's stupid if he doesn't move. Like, you're not going to use him. Clearly, he's getting paid a lot. He's a Pro Bowler. Have him go somewhere. For all parties, and other than Raiders fans, all parties involved are like, let's move on. Like, let's be done with this. Josh McDaniels doesn't want that roster spot taken up. Mark Davis doesn't want to pay him if he's not going to do anything. I'm sure Hunter Renfrow doesn't want to be there if he's not part of the offense. Other than fans of his, everyone's like, okay, let's move on. Here's what Jordan Schultz said as an update to that whole situation.
From everything I've been told, the Raiders have been trying to move Renfrow really going back to last season. And unfortunately, they haven't been able to find a suitor, in large part because of his contract. But I can tell you that both sides want to find a healthy separation. It's a mutual agreement that a change of scenery for Renfrow would benefit everyone involved. Really comes down to a fractured relationship with Josh McDaniels.
A fractured relationship with Josh McDaniels. Now, we've heard all the other stuff before until that last line. I can't imagine having a fractured relationship with Hunter Renfrow. He seems like the most laid back, easygoing, aw shucks, okay. Like, I'm going to get an Uber X with my $1 million quarterback and franchise receivers in the back and just the most like laid back, down to earth country boy ever. How do you have a fractured relationship with that guy?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you know exactly what's going on. We know that Hunter thrives, from his own words, he thrives on doing things a little bit differently, doing things his own way. Mm. That is not going to endear yourself to Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
We know that his connection with Derek Carr was as such where they were on the same page and they were like locked in.
Yeah.
So if, not saying this is true, not saying it isn't, but I could see that maybe some plays that were made weren't maybe part of the offense. It kind of went on their own.
Yeah.
That just, yeah, as a possibility. I'm not saying it did or it didn't happen, but knowing what we know about both of those guys, that Renfrow does really well and is doing his own thing, and him and Carr were just so locked into each other. Yeah, I can see that happening. It kind of gives me a new perspective now, knowing that this has been something that has been brewing for over a year now. I'm sure the injury to Renfrow didn't help last year, and maybe McDaniels doesn't feel like can stay healthy, so he doesn't want to put him out in the field to get him hurt again and not being able to trade him. I don't know.
We talked about this in the offseason about like all the little microcosms of what we can watch with Josh McDaniels. And one of the things we talked about was, can he and Hunter Renfrow work, right? Like a good, I think probably the greatest quality of a coach is to get the best out of your players. Mm-hmm. Like there's, hey, or, if you're a GM, how do you handle that? What's your offense like? What's your defense like? What's your, how do you manage the cap? How do you deal with all of your assistants? How do you handle the media? There's a million things that make you a good or bad coach. If you said, all right, give me one good quality that you want in your coach, it's just simply getting the best out of your players. That's, I think, the main job, whether it's through motivation, whether it's through fundamentals, whether it's through great schemes, whether it's Bisaccia just like loving them to be successful. There's whatever it is.
It incorporates a lot.
Whatever it is. Josh McDaniels and the Hunter Renfrow relationship was like, all right, here's the chance to show that JMD has grown and not the Broncos guy that still the Broncos coach that failed. Can he get what's in Hunter Renfrow? Amazing 100-catch, 1,000-yard Pro Bowl receiver is in Hunter Renfrow. Can you get it out of him? And it was just opposite. He's gotten less out of him than Clemson did. It's like he's got nothing out of Hunter Renfrow, and it was. You can't get that little out of that much talent. There's something terribly wrong. And this whole like fractured relationship, that little line, and if I could be digging in too deep to it, but it could be just JMD just being like, all right, screw you. You're not doing it exactly how I say. I'm never going to use you. You're never going to get the ball thrown to you. You're literally not in the progressions of these routes on the few times you do touch the field.
That's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. Not knowing exactly what's going on. Yeah, it does seem that way, because to have a player that, I mean, is he a 100-catch, 1,000-yard guy like consistently every year? I don't think he's that, because I don't know that he's going to be a number one receiver when he goes to a different team, but he's definitely going to be a whole lot more productive than he's doing for us.
Yeah.
And
that's the frustration, is that in Josh McDaniels' system, a slot receiver can be a stud. He's always had a good slot receiver, and it's a big part of the system. So it's like a double whammy that you can't make a good slot receiver produce.
And the thing is, you can't really use the excuse or the reason that he wants his slot receiver to be able to like do more run the ball, like jet sweep stuff, because he only does it like once a game.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and we talked about this already in a previous show, and you and I were talking about this with Rory. If you're going to run a jet sweep, you should run the action at least 3 times a game. You don't have to do the jet sweep 3 times a game, but there's a lot of different things you can do off a jet sweep, right? Yeah. You can do play action. You can fake it and give it to JJ on a dive. I mean, you can do a bunch of different things to keep the defense honest, and the jet sweeps will work a lot better when you actually run them. So I see it from that perspective, but he has too much talent to be used this little. Do I feel like he's this, locked in 100 receiver guy like a Davante Adams wherever he goes? No, he's not that guy, but he's a whole lot better than what he's showing us or what he's allowed to show us.
It's going to be yet another Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler situation where we're trading a Pro Bowler for a sack of marbles. Like, it's going to just the Darren Waller thing we got a good deal after everything soured, right? If you look at the second we traded him, getting a third for him, especially in hindsight, that was the right move there, but it never should have gotten to that point, right? Paid him 2 seasons early, let it all fall apart. Derek Carr, the no trade clause, got nothing for him. Like, he's, the franchise quarterback somewhere and got nothing for him. And I feel like Hunter Renfrow is going to be another, we drafted the rare hit in a draft, right? 5th round pick that, credit where credit's due, right? Gruden and Mayock, hit it, right? They got a home run in the 5th round. The rare times they do, and it's going to be squandered. And it's just when we do actually finally do 3 things in a row right, we blow it at the finish line.
I mean, look, we traded Ngakoue for Rock Yassin, and then we let him walk. And Rock Yassin is doing really well with the Ravens, and we basically traded Yassin and got Marcus Peters from the Ravens, and Marcus Peters is not doing well at all. So basically, we traded away Ngakoue for nothing.
We traded Ngakoue for nothing, and then signed Chandler Jones to replace him, who went insane. And then we drafted Tyree Wilson, who eventually replaced Chandler Jones, and he's the worst first-round pick in football. It's the second, we lucked, Rock, we lucked a rare free agent pickup where we didn't overpay. We picked up a guy that he wasn't even a big starter in Indy. He was a role player. Played great for us.
He's a good guy. He played really well a lot better for us than he did in Indy.
Best DB outside of Hobbs for us, right?
Yeah, he did really well.
Taken away, and we just couldn't replace him. It's the rare times we do hit personnel-wise, whether draft or free agency or whatever, we just find a way to blow it. We just can't put all the pieces together. Either draft, develop, decent contract, keep with us, or free agent, trade, decent contract, develop, either move on and get something or get all we can out of them, let them walk. We never can put it all together perfectly. We can never get it. When's the last time we had a player go through the whole system, play great with us, and let him walk at just the right time, or did it, let him get not too late?
That's a big one. Let him walk at just the right time is a big one, because we've had players that we've developed, but we just kept them too long. And we paid him too much.
Along those lines, the trade deadline is coming up. It's Tuesday, October 31st. You're like, why do I know that date exactly? It's Halloween. That's gonna be rough for all the beat writers that have kids. It's one of the busiest days in the NFL season, and you're like, all right, everyone's put the candy down, put down the cocktail.
Is it midnight or is it during the day on Halloween?
It's 4 Eastern or something.
Oh, that's not too bad.
It's not too bad. But I mean, you're once the trades happen, you're following up. What's the contract? Give me some quotes. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Just when the deadline ends, and 4 o'clock Eastern, most of these guys are East Coast, 4 o'clock Eastern, you start trick-or-treating with young kids at 5 or 6, when the sun's still up, right? 5,
So different from when we were kids.
When did you start trick-or-treating? It was already pitch black?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I grew up in the I was trick-or-treating in the early 80s, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were putting people on milk cartons yet. I don't know if that was a thing yet. At least that wasn't a nationwide thing, I don't think. No Amber Alerts, none of that. It was just, stick together. That was the freaking, stick together so you're easier to steal.
Yeah.
You know? Like, well, all my cousins and stuff were all like around, some of my cousins were on my brother's 2 years older. There's me. I got a cousin a month younger, a year younger, 2 years younger, 3 years younger. I mean, so we're all like bunched in together and like, all right, go trick or treating. Just stay together. What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That way we can get pushed into a van in one push. Everyone gets pushed in the van together.
Exactly. Well, we're going to be potentially making some moves here. Now it's this season, Dave Ziegler's been this kind of like work it down the middle type thing. Whereas like it was big splashes last year, right? Chandler Jones, Davante Adams, trade draft pick. Let's go huge. Let's give all these big contracts to Waller and like, hitting a home run, right? This season, it's been very little. Like there were some moves in the offseason, but it was always just like, it was just improving what was already good. Like, getting Jacoby Myers, another wide receiver, some veteran on the cheap, kind of like coming off injury DBs, keeping all your draft picks you can develop. It's been like a mixed bag, right? It's not going all in or selling everything for the future. So it feels, and I feel like this trade deadline is going to be the same way. I think we're going to get swindled for Hunter Renfrow. I think someone's going to be like, all right, here's a sixth, and you have to pay some of the salary or something like that, right? We're going to get squat for Hunter, maybe get a guard from somewhere, maybe get an end from somewhere, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be any massive moves, but it feels like there will be some moves.
I mean, there should be some moves. So it's hard to say that there will be, because I mean, there's not been any indication that anything is like really cooking, at least, Yeah. That's the hard part. It's like, yeah, do you have to are we asking Dave Ziegler to like divulge what he's doing? But I mean, I don't see. I mean, they're really tight-lipped anyway up there, but still, man, like that's like getting borderline ridiculous. Like we're hearing zero from anywhere.
Well, I feel like I think like Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler are coaching and GMing for their job this season, right? And so they're trying to make it clear, because they should be in politics one day if this whole football thing doesn't work out, and it's starting to not work out.
Yeah, right.
They're in this balancing act where they have to sell that the future is bright to Mark Davis. They have to sell like, hey, because you're not winning now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're only 3-4, but for something about Josh McDaniels makes you feel like we're 0-7, right? Like we're 3-4. It doesn't feel that way. It feels way worse than the season just feels like it's not as good as a 3-4 season. And that's coming from 20 years of being Raiders fans where, we've been knocked out of the playoffs by Thanksgiving more times than I can count, right? So they have to make it feel like, hey, we're building towards the future, but also winning enough to not look like a dumpster fire. So they can't sell all their picks to like get talent right this second to get us to 7 wins, but they can't sell everything they have now and have us go 3-14 for next season, because they're not going to be around next season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to have a vote of confidence to be able to do that, and I don't know that they've earned that. And because I don't know that anything, and this is hard because we don't know the conversations that have. For all we know, this is them tanking. He's like, I'm just going to keep my offense really simple. I'm not going to tell. I have a bunch of stuff in the can that I'm not going to show. I'm just going to like go out there and we're going to lose and we're going to, whatever. We're going to win some games. We're going to lose some games, but we're going to go out there and we're really going to build for the next season or whatever. Who knows? I doubt that's the case. I really don't think that's the case at all. But for someone trying to win, I don't know that he's really done anything that anyone can point to and look at and say, okay, this is why I'm going to give you a vote of confidence moving forward after what you've shown me this year and change. And I mean, everyone on earth except for Mark Davis thinks that we should move on from Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
And has it been like a kind of a not unspoken thing, but like kind of like a side deal, like, hey, look, we're going to really stink.
Yeah.
And then we're going to push moving forward, and we're going to do everything we can to move up in the draft to get the quarterback that we want, and we're going to do this and that, blah, blah, blah. Is that the plan? Who knows, man? Who knows? But if you're going to make those big moves, you better have the backing of the man upstairs. Because if
God.
not, heads are going to roll.
The backing of God. Or Mark
When it
Davis.
comes to the Raiders, yeah.
So a couple specifics. You can always tell when a journalist or a YouTube guy or radio host or whoever, and they're talking about Davante Adams with the Raiders, and they say like, yeah, he should ask for a trade. They should move on. You can tell the ones that do their homework and the ones that don't. Davante Adams isn't going anywhere this season. His dead cap's like $50 million. No way. 0% chance. Anyone who's saying that isn't doing it's either a national guy that sees the headline and goes, or a hack that covers the Raiders. Like you're just it's one that's like the first thing I think of when I think of like, oh, this guy's asking for a trade or can this guy trade? I immediately look up what's their cap hit, what's their salary. That's the first thing I do, not film, not their stats. It's what's his contract look like. That should be the first thing you look up. You glance at Davante Adams' contract for 4 seconds.
No way.
No way he's moving, right? So he's sticking around no matter how much. So get that out of your head. Hunter Renfrow, I think for sure is going to be gone by October 31st. Now it's just a matter of can we please God get something out of this guy value-wise. The spots, because it's Josh McDaniels and because it's Dave Ziegler and the way they've approached the entire offseason, I don't think they make like any defensive moves. I think maybe they get like a guard because that's all they do is just try to soup up the offense with what they want and say, all right, Patrick Graham, here's some duct tape and baling wire. Try to scrape together a defense.
He does little pieces here and there, but they're trying to build that defense young. Mm-hmm. You can tell what they're trying to do, and to some extent, I understand because it's not it's not like you're really close to being a great defense, and one or a piece is going to really put you over the top. Can it make you better? Sure, it's going to make you better. The player's better, but overall, how worth it is it? But you got to start doing something. And, Epps is playing pretty good. Merrick's coming into form. Spillane's okay. He's spotty. He's good. And then, he's missing tackles, the next day. So
Hobbs is still hurt, which we'll get to.
God damn,
Diablo got hurt. We don't know what's going on with him, which we'll get to.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. It's just there's
it's
a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And the thing is we don't see any type of like a pattern.
Well, I feel like this defense was built around Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, Tyree Wilson will get pressure and they'll make everything better, right? Like
the line has to get
pressure off the edge, fixes a lot of things, right? It covers up a lot of warts. It's really good makeup for some over-the-hill DBs or some developing DBs or some poor tackling linebackers if you can get a really good pressure off the edge. And other than Max Crosby, they're not getting it, right? Obviously, Chandler Jones didn't play a snap, and Tyree Wilson has had like one play all season where you're like, oh, there's Tyree Wilson. He did something. And so that's held the whole defense back. And so because there's a lot of good edge rushers available. Like there's some pretty decent edge rushers that are going to hit the market.
And rushing defensive tackles too.
And so do you go and get like another defensive end? Like you're paying all the dead cap on Chandler Jones. You used a 7th overall pick on Tyree Wilson. You pay Max Crosby a ton, worth every dime and more so, but you pay Max Crosby a ton. Do you get yet another edge rusher? Because the market says you should, but is it just like, let's just stack them up and we'll win with volume?
I mean, it's possible. You can get a guy that can rush from the inside. There's, Chase Young's out there. There's Leonard Williams is out there. So there's some guys that are out there that can rush from the inside, which is what you need the help from.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily go with another edge. I would if I'm going to do something to my defensive line, I'm going to do something inside.
Mm-hmm. Minnesota's Daniel Hunter is probably going to be out there. I like him a lot. Get him for not too much.
From Minnesota, yeah?
Minnesota, yeah.
It's Daniil or it's Daniil, right?
Is it Daniil? Is it Daniel or Daniil?
I mean, it's spelled
Danielle.
I think it's Daniil.
Daniil?
Yeah.
Even when he's on the Raiders, we're still not going to pronounce his name right.
We better learn how to say it.
You know how I roll. It is a cool name, and the Raiders do have awesome named players. They don't play for crap, but God, their names are sweet. You look down at a roster,
sick ass
look
names.
At some of the names, right? That's why Rocky Yassin, I miss him so bad. One, because he's playing good. He had maybe the coolest name on a team of cool names. Rocky Yassin. That sounds like an 80s cover band. An awesome name. Injury report. We don't got one. We're recording this on a Wednesday, and because we're playing on Monday, it's all pushed back a day, so there wasn't an official injury report. And we have a lot of big questions. Obviously, the biggest one is the quarterback. Josh McDaniels didn't have to give an official injury report on anybody, but he did say this to the media today. Asked about Jimmy G when he's going to come back. That's a medical thing. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to put a percentage on that. I know he's doing well, but that's something that they will let us know exactly when we're able to turn the corner. I'm hoping for this week, but I don't have clarification on that yet. What he said on Sunday after the game was, if Jimmy G is healthy, he's playing. And there's really nothing that Brian Hoyer did Sunday or the other 12 starts before that to not get a win to say, let's move on from Jimmy G. Not really a quarterback battle, even if Jimmy G comes back, but we don't know when that is and how long he's going to be because they're very mum about details on injuries.
Yeah, that whole press conference was just really just deflating, just his mindset. Josh McDaniels.
Trying to use a former offensive coordinator from the Patriots and use the deflating analogy. It was really deflated.
It was just, they're trying to. The media is doing their job, and they're trying to ask Josh McDaniels about why he didn't use Farva instead of Hoyer, and at least why didn't he put him in at half? And, McDaniels is very dismissive. He was very condescending. Like, yeah, this isn't preseason, this is, well, he went in there and scored a touchdown. Farva went in there and scored a touchdown. Granted, it was in mop-up time, but he still the offense still looked a whole lot better when he was in there.
Well, and that answer is ridiculous. It's like, well, Aiden O'Connell is really good in preseason. This isn't preseason; it's regular season. It's like, okay, Brian Hoyer looks terrible in regular season,
and he didn't look as good in the preseason either.
Yeah, well, it's like there's no way to use that analogy and have it work. It's like, we want a proven guy that's done well in the regular season. That's not Brian Hoyer.
It goes to what we talked about earlier is his stubbornness and his ego. I'm going to use Brian Hoyer because this is the guy that I brought in to back up. And, he got a lot of weird looks, and Brian Hoyer and 15-year vet Brian Hoyer, like, going to retire Brian Hoyer. You want that guy? And it's like almost he's force feeding just to prove a point that.
Can you let Jarrett Stidham walk? Got a 2-year, $5 million deal.
None of this stuff makes sense. And as far as the press conference goes, more recently, it just his condescending tone and how dismissive he was of the skill level of Farva when they played with the same teammates against the same players in preseason. Farva looked markedly better, and the offense looked markedly better when they played the Chargers when Farva was in there. He did have some turnovers, but he got better as the game went along. It just shows a lack. He's playing two different sides at the same time, and it just being a big mess. It's like, yeah, I want to start Hoyer because he gives me a better chance to win right now. Really, it doesn't look like that's the case.
Never overlook coaches just falling in love with like football guys. Because you think about it, right? Like, you have a game, you have 17 games all year long, right? You have preseason and off season and open workouts and OTAs. And you have a million more practices, meetings, film sessions, workouts than you do actual playing time. So when you fall in love with a dude, right? You're like, oh, I just love having Brian Hoyer around. Like, he's great in meetings. He's great in film sessions. He knows my scheme. Like, we talk about the same crappy Netflix shows. We play the same video games, whatever. Like, so often we underestimate how much that goes into coaches' decisions because you're with that guy. Like, 99% of your time with them isn't in the game. And sometimes you forget, like, oh, this guy makes me feel good. This guy understands me. This guy gets me. It's like, he's a football guy. Yeah, I love this guy. And you're just like, he doesn't produce. But that's all we see and all we care about. And that's all that should be cared about.
Yeah.
But they don't produce on the back end.
Yeah. I mean, I get 100% what you're saying. It's like the similar scenario when, you see a bunch of chicks and one of their friends is like a freaking sea donkey, and they're like, oh, but she's really nice and she's really sweet and this and that and blah 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 blah. They're gonna talk up all the good points about her, and then there's a supermodel that walks by that they hate, like, oh, look at her toenails, oh, this and that. They're gonna find anything to pick. If they like you, they're gonna talk you up and they're gonna look at the best things about you. And that's similar to what Josh McDaniels is doing with Hoyer. He likes him. He's like, he's great in the locker room. He's great in the film room. He's great in practice, this and that, blah, blah. Well, he's not great in the game. He's not good in the game. He's not average. He's not below average in the game. He's terrible.
And it's just like you forget sometimes how bad they are in the game because you spent 12 hours with them every day for the last 6 months. And you're like, oh, wait, yeah, you can't do the one thing I need you to do, and that's win football games. Also injuries to follow. Divine Diablo got knocked out first quarter in the Bears game, I believe. First or second quarter. Definitely first half.
Yeah, first half.
Quarter. Didn't come back. No update on him. That's certainly one to follow. Nate Hobbs has now missed his 4th game. It's that tells you a lot that he wasn't put on IR. This is something that they thought he could be back from pretty quick, and he didn't. Like, it wasn't a surgery. It wasn't a broken bone. It wasn't anything like that. We were like, okay, this is something that keeps getting re-aggravated for one reason or another, and that's not a good sign. Or he's not thrilled about how things are going in the locker room, and he's like, man, forget this. Oh, I need a backiotomy. Oh, man. Oh, darn.
I need a backiotomy.
I can't play again? Ah, shucks. Darn.
I don't practice. I don't play. Oh, my goodness. Okay, it is what it is.
And then Josh Jacobs got knocked out of the game for not even a quarter. Just missed a little bit of time. Came back. Like a hip thing. He walked off holding his hip. No update on him either.
Hip pointer, man. I did that when I was... Man, I tried to do the hammer throw in high school. They didn't have the hammer throw there, but I was practicing to go when I was going to go to college. Mm-hmm. And man, I freaking jacked my hip up. Oh, that's painful. That's super painful. You get a hip pointer, you like strain your hip flexor, you get a little small tear in it. Ugh, can't do anything with that leg.
Good thing Josh Jacobs is an Adonis, and he'll probably fight through it. But those are the 4 injuries we're going to be following when the reports start coming out. It's so weird with Jimmy G getting hurt. Normally, it's like a kick to the nuts for a team. But for Raider Nation, you're like, good, give us Farva. It's like the one team of other 31 teams. The starting quarterback goes out. You're like, oh, season's over. This is DEFCON 2. With Raider Nation, we're like, sweet. Come on.
Okay,
Farva.
I'm gonna tell a joke that kind of like made shows how Raider Nation felt, right? Because we said, yeah, man, if Jimmy G doesn't play, then Farva's going to go in. And it's like, no, we're going to start Brian Hoyer. Like, deflating, right? Mm-hmm. So a guy, he helps an old man cross the street. And the guy's like, hey, man, I'm a wizard. I can grant you one wish. And it's like, man, okay, can we time out the I'll just say the regular word. It's like, yeah, I want a penis that touches the floor. And the wizard goes, okay, bam. And he hit his wand, and the guy has no legs. Mm. That was Brian Hoyer going in. Like, we got what we wanted, but not the result that we were looking for.
I got almost the exact same joke, but I think mine's better. We'll let you guys decide which joke was better. So a guy walks into a bar, and he sees a tiny 1 foot tall man playing the piano.
Joke before.
Playing the piano? That one?
Yeah.
All right. For those, we have a whole bunch of new subscribers. We got to do it again.
Okay.
Guy walks into a bar and there's like a 1 foot man, tiny man playing the piano. And he goes to the bar. He's like, dude, what's up with that crazy tiny guy playing the piano? He's like, well, there's a genie in the back and he's giving out wishes. And he's like, but he's kind of hard of hearing. So you have to like really speak up. So he goes to the genie and he's like, I want to be a millionaire. Gene says, what? He's like, I want to be a millionaire. And he comes back and he has a whole bunch of balloons. He's like, oh, I gave you a bunch of air, a whole bunch of air. He's like, oh man, what a waste of a wish. So the guy goes over to the bartender with all these balloons and he's like, look, this genie can't listen. He didn't give me the right wish. So the bartender says, oh, you think I asked for a 12-inch pianist? Nah.
But he's here all week.
Ready to do some What Up Windbags?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cedric Moore, 8053. You think this hurts? Wait till we play the Lions on Monday night. Like Soto said, Lions won't use any spit. I don't know what the Lions can do to us. I don't think it's going to hurt as bad as the Bears because the Lions are good. Like the Lions on paper should dick slap us. What are they now? They're like 7.5 point favorites or something.
RJ?
Oh, that same one.
Where, Jar?
That's why I said penis. I think that the potential for the game could be a lot bigger than 18-point loss. They have an explosive.
Oh, for sure.
They have an explosive.
Oh, for sure. I'm just saying losing to the Bears by how much we did, we could lose to the Lions by twice as much and won't hurt as bad.
Yeah,
they're
but
8.5 point
just
favorites.
the fact of taking a fat L like that again in prime time. Like at least we were hidden in like an early game with a bunch of other early games. This is like exposed in front of everybody.
If you want to get your asshole rammed by a team, it's the 10 a.m. window. Like that's when you want to get embarrassed.
There's like 9 other games on. Like you're good. Yeah, this can be potentially very ugly. And honestly, I never want us to lose ever. I don't think that you can win by losing. I think that you may get a better draft spot, but you also lose a lot of people that could be good players that make the bulk of your team, right? Yeah. Because of the just the culture that breeds. But if we get embarrassed the second week in a row on Monday Night Football, that could be just the fire that gets lit under Mark Davis's butt to make him do something.
Victor Anguano, 7401. Raider fans should show up to the Aces parade with signs and banners that say "Fire Josh McDaniels." Well, what are the odds that you brought that up? And exactly that happened. Literally what you said happened. I wonder if this is Victor. I wonder if he's. We got to ask him.
That's Vegas Ralph. Shout out to Vegas Ralph.
Vegas Ralph. Leaving that's the parking lot between T-Mobile Arena.
Davis. That is the Mark Davis right there.
Yeah.
And he comes back to talk to him.
Yeah. That's right out in between T-Mobile and the parking garage right there. So he's leaving like the party.
That party looked packed too, by the way.
Mm-hmm. That's how you protest too. Like you don't chain yourself to something. You don't get like aggressive. You don't get like violent. You're just like, here's what I'm saying loudly. Oh, you want to respond? I'm still passionate about it. I will have a conversation, but I will not yield my inflammatory remarks and feelings.
What other owner does that? I've seen owners do it like in the media, on social media, like doing an interview, stuff like that. But like, what owner has gone face to face twice now with?
What owner is out in the public like that? Like what owner?
Which is endearing about Mark Davis, I will admit,
because he's a big kid. He's just a big kid in the world's biggest sandbox.
He just like I like skinny blondes with big boobs. Like, what's up?
Yeah. Jeremiah Rose 4681. I give Soto so much grief, but yes, playing good cop, bad cop with RJ is entertaining.
I'm glad somebody likes it.
Which one's the good cop? Which one's the bad cop?
I don't know. I think it changes.
We're like The Wire. We're both crooked, but we just sometimes like one episode I'm more moral than you are.
That's a great show.
It's the most well-written show ever. I can listen to the argument that there are better shows and like, Sopranos, Breaking Bad. We can have these conversations. When you say like, which show was written better than The Wire? No way. Not even close.
One of the reasons why it was such a well-written show is because each season was written on its own. we talked about this before.
Yeah.
It was such an early show.
It was encapsulated on its own. It could be its own thing, but it always led to the next one, right? Like it was the drug trade, and then unions, and then education, and then media.
Yeah.
All the same characters flawlessly, but you bring in new guys, but the old ones flawlessly move between them without any jump around. All the characters. It was the first show where the characters were super realistic. There's not one good guy. There's not like one, that's the protagonist. Every one of them is a piece of garbage in some way.
Yeah, and it's like the reason why it happened that way is The Wire didn't know that they were going to get picked up year to year. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, this is your year. We don't TV, HBO making their own content really wasn't a thing back then. They had what was that one in jail? Whatever that was.
Yeah. Darn it.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Rick Fox was on it. But yeah, there's that.
This is going to kill me.
I know it's killing me right now, but it wasn't like a guarantee that they had 2-3 years to go.
Thousands of listeners are screaming at their phones and computers right now.
No, but they had that show to tell the story in that season and that season alone. So they had to tie everything together, had to make everything make sense. And it was Oz. There you go. Boom. But yeah, so then
be a swear jar.
Basically every single year was like that. Okay, you got another year. Okay, we got to do it again. Well, we already told the story. We already ended a lot of the things that we were telling. Well, let's tell it from this perspective. Okay, there we go. And you do that. And just tell a new story from a new perspective with the same characters. That's why it was just so brilliant. It was a great show. Great show.
Then you got Bunk just being awesome.
The best part of what I started to use, can we time out with the freaking thing? Because I'm going to say something bad.
Okay. Earmuffs, earmuff kids.
Earmuffs. Shit. Got your ass. That was so good. He was on a show. It was on a movie. What was it movie? Cedar Rapids. And he played a guy that liked the show The Wire.
He only plays that character, which is all he should do. Like, most actors don't like being typecasted. He should only be that.
I mean, he was a very buttoned down version of that, but he played in the movie. He played that character again. It was great.
So good. All right, that's it for us. We will do a pre-game show leading up to Monday night, probably Friday. I'm going to the UCLA game Saturday, and then Halloween party, and then football Sunday, and then Monday night game against the Lions. So we'll probably do it Friday, give you guys an extra day to enjoy it before we do that. Post-game show Monday night right after, and then probably, I know it's Halloween on Tuesday, but if something big happens, we got to go live.
Yeah.
The trade deadline for us on the West Coast is 1:00. So we got it. If something's worth us pulling ourselves out of our families and work, then we'll definitely do it, because that's trade deadline, and that's what we do. We're as devoted as you guys are, or as we are to you. Also, the wheels are turning for a lot of things. The best way you can help is to become a member. Memberships are now available, 3 different levels. You can click the join button right there. Just click it right now and just look. Just window shop, right? You're just, you're walking by Gucci. You're just looking in the window. You don't have to go in. Just look, see if it entices you. If not, no big deal. Glad you're here. And the first wave of equipment for the new studio just came in the mail this evening. Got some filters, got a new lens, got some stands. It's all starting to come together. So big things are happening. Glad you guys are along for the ride. It wouldn't have happened without you guys. Until then, now go wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.